I'm going to pray, and then after I pray, we're going to have our sister Ginaphr share a testimony. Hopefully the baby's okay. And we're then going to go out and baptize our sister Ginaphr. And I realize some of you are thinking, wait, Ginaphr is a member in our church already. She's already been baptized. Well, she's going to share some about that and what God has done in her life with all of us before we step outside and baptize her. And so, brethren, let me pray, and then we'll give our sister that opportunity. Oh, is it? You got the green channel on?
Hello? Okay. Well, good morning, church. As he said, I'm here to share my testimony with you, and I know that might be shocking to some of you. It was to me as well. But I'll just start from the beginning. I grew up going to church before I could even walk with my grandparents, and so there wasn't ever really a time where I didn't at least know, Jesus died on the cross for our sins, in my head at least. But as I'm looking back, there was not really any understanding or teaching on sin, on how great God really is and how he sees our sin. And I grew up in a really small town in Oklahoma where really everybody goes to church, everybody says that they're a Christian, and so it's kind of easy to just fit into this mold and, say the right things and learn the lingo and act a certain way, It's really easy to do that when everybody around you is doing that. But pretty shortly after Caleb and I started coming, I really started wrestling just with where I was at, and just, I don't know, being under good preaching just really started stirring in me that, like, I don't know if I am a Christian, and so I would always try to reconcile within myself of like, oh, because of this or because of that, like I am a Christian, or just try to bring things up to convince myself that I was. And it was just this internal battle for so long. I never spoke up to anyone. I just was trying to reconcile it in my own mind. And a couple months ago, Tim was giving a sermon on sin and our conscience. And for so long, I would just push things down, like when your trash can is full and you're pushing all the trash down so you can put more trash on top of it. That's what I was doing. And so during the sermon, he was talking about a liberated conscience. And I remember thinking, I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, that can't be true, because it wasn't true in my life. Like, I was just in turmoil inside all the time. And I actually remember sitting in my chair and like looking out at the church and being like, is that what everybody here feels? Like what every Christian here feels? And it was this first time where I was like, I definitely don't have that. Like that is not true in my life. And then he went on to the other side of that, the person that knows that their conscience is evil and they have anxiety thinking about what's going to happen when I die. And I knew that was me. Like everything he was saying, I felt like he should have just been looking right at me. Like all of it was how I was feeling. And at the very end, or towards the end of that sermon, he said, some of you out here know that this is you. And he said, don't ignore this. And it was like, as soon as he said that, all that trash that I had been pushing down just like exploded. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that it couldn't be internal anymore. Like I needed to talk about it. I needed to let it out. And so, after that, this was right before, this is actually the week of Luke's due date. And so my parents were in town. They came into town without telling us they were coming. And so right after that sermon, we were going to go see them. And so I was on the phone, or I called her, and just as soon as she answered the phone, I just like had so much anger that they, didn't tell us they were coming. And I knew he was probably going to come later anyways. And so they were here, and he was like, there was no sign of even labor or anything starting. And so I just felt so much anger that they didn't tell us. And I remember she answered the phone and I couldn't even talk to her. I just handed the phone to Caleb, and yeah, so after we hung up, I remember telling him, I was like, I don't know why it's so hard for me to love her. It's something I've struggled with the long time is loving my mom. And so fast forward a couple of days, I was just holding on and thinking about this sermon over and over, and like just this, yeah, it was just a weight on me. And so he asked me one night, I think he just was like, hey, how are you doing? Like something super, super chill. And I just told him, I was like, I've been thinking about what Tim said, and I don't have any assurance. I just kind of told him where I was at, and he was like, okay. So we sat down, and he read 1 John 1 with me, talking about if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us. And he really just laid the gospel before me that night. And I remember, obviously, of course, I've heard it, all of growing up and being here. And I remember thinking like, it was like I was hearing it for the first time while we were sitting there in our living room. And so we talked a little more, and then we started to lay down and go to bed, and he was listening to this video, and I had already kind of fallen asleep, and he really felt that I should listen to this video. And I'm 40 weeks pregnant, so he's like, should I wake my wife up? Or so he decided to wake me up, and I'm glad that he did. And the video he wanted to show me was Paul Washer's wife's testimony. If you're not familiar with that, she was a missionary for 12 years and thought that she was saved, but really in her heart she wasn't. And just of her coming to that realization and everything like that. And so we listened to that, and then at the end he asked me, he was like, do you resonate with any of that? Does any of that sound like what you're going through? And I was like, that is exactly how I feel. Like everything that she was saying, it was like someone was articulating what I've been feeling for so long. So I told him, I said, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And I think at that point, that's when he kind of realized, like, okay, like you're not saved. And so he just told me, he was like, you just need to go before God. Like, obviously we were preparing for Luke. And so he said, I'll do whatever I need to do with Luke, but I want you to go before him. I want you to give God no rest until you're sure. And so he went in another room, and also while we were talking, he was just telling me about our sin and like how God sees it. And for the first time, I really realized that like everything, all those sins, like my bad attitudes, or your complaining, or all those thoughts you have in your head, like all those things that maybe are like, oh, I would think like, oh, that's not that bad. It's sin against a perfect and righteous and holy God. And I had never really seen my sin for what it was before him, how vile and grotesque it is, even if I may think that it's small. All of those, they make me deserving of hell. And I had never really come to terms with that. Growing up, I was kind of, the goody two shoes, as good as you can be, so it was kind of easy for me to be like, oh yeah, like, we all sin, but my sin's not really that bad, kind of, even if I wouldn't have said that, just kind of just in my thoughts. I may not have said that out loud, but just that's kind of how I would see it. But then I just saw like, no, even those things, all of it makes me deserving to go to hell. And so he went into another room, and I just got down, and I confessed all of it that came to mind. And I remember being there, and after all of that, just thinking like, God, can I even like come to you? Do you want me after all of this? And Jesus' words from Matthew came to mind, and he says, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and you will find rest. And I remember thinking like, wow, rest, that is like the thing that I had been chasing for so long. I was just in so much turmoil, like I had said, and like, I can find rest in him. So I believe that he heard me that night, and that he saved me. And I laid down to after that again to try to go to sleep, and he was already kind of asleep. And I remember I sat up super quick. I like jumped up because I'm like, I can't sleep. Like I was just full of so much joy that all that weight had been lifted, that he took it, but also that he doesn't give us what we deserve. That I was able to come to him. And so I think I kind of scared him with how quick I jumped up, and he was like, what's going on? But I was like, it's okay. It's just like so much joy and this peace that I'd been trying to find within myself, but you can't find it within yourself. And my parents were in town, and so I remember the next day we were going to go see them and being so excited to love my mom. Like I had the freedom to love her because it wasn't coming from me anymore. It wasn't me trying to fabricate these feelings. But yeah, I was just so excited to go and to love her, and they were the first people that I got to tell what happened to me, which I thought was really sweet. But yeah, that is what the Lord has done in my life, and I just want to apologize to all of you for deceiving you guys, even though I myself was also deceived. And I just want to say that if anyone out here feels that way, don't wait. Please don't wait. Please don't keep silent. You can come to him, and he promises rest. So that's what I have.
Here are the 2 videos referred to that the Lord used in her conversion.